for the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia. Madam Chairman, I urge my colleagues to continue its support for the needs of these insular areas and our obligations to our compact friends in the Pacific. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentlelady from California rise?
Madam Chair, I move to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, I rise in support of Ms. Bordallo's amendment and to protest the gutting and slashing of more than $6 million for the insular areas. This will hurt American families and communities all across the country, from the Northern Mariana Islands to the northern border of Maine. It hits our outlying territories particularly hard, and the American citizens and families who live and work there. This bill takes more than 7% out of the Assistance to Territories account, which funds critical programs at the local level in Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. These communities have unique needs, and this account helps them address those. It helps fund disaster mitigation programs, particularly important in low-lying islands susceptible to tropical storms. It helps ensure a strong and robust judiciary in American Samoa, a crucial program to ensure that the American Constitution and U.S. laws are upheld in every corner of our nation. It helps these areas make needed infrastructure repairs, which creates jobs that are critical during this tough economic time. This amendment would restore this funding, and just because these communities may be farther away means that they are no less American and in no less need for the services this funding provides. Just because these communities are farther away does not mean that this slashing of programs will go unnoticed. As chairwoman of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, I want to express my strong support for the amendment offered by Ms. Bordallo and oppose the cuts to the Assistance to Territories account offered by the Republican majority in H.R. 1. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. For what purpose does the gentleman from the Northern Marianas rise?
Madam Chair, I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, people in the Northern Mariana Islands pay up to 40 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. That's 4 times the national average, because we're dependent on diesel oil shipped long distances. A technical assistance grant for the Department of Interior's Office of Insular Affairs, however, has helped identify a possible source of geothermal energy on one of the islands. Further exploration and more investment is needed to be sure that this alternative energy source will work for us. But without the technical assistance grant from Interior, we wouldn't even know that we have this possibility of getting off our dependence on expensive foreign oil. And now H.R. 1 proposes to cut the funds that Interior uses to help the Northern Marianas and the other insular areas in this way. That kind of thinking is penny wise and pound foolish. But helping us get free of foreign oil is only one example of how this Interior Department funding helps us. These cuts threaten the brown tree snake program. I know this may sound like a joke to some, but on Guam there are literally 500,000 or more of these snakes. A few came in on military aircraft and spread quickly. They have caused millions of dollars in damage to electrical systems, distribution systems, and destroyed the rare indigenous bird life. And we don't want to see this pest spread to the Northern Mariana Islands or Hawaii or the mainland United States. And the Interior Department funding is keeping these snakes in check. Do away with this funding and these unwanted immigrants will break through our borders. The Interior Department funding that H.R. 1 cut supports training programs for high school and college students in the islands. It supports training for our professional people in financial management, accounting, and auditing to help us manage our money to U.S. standards. Take away that training money and you will make it even more difficult for us to build capacity and become fully integrated into the American family. Our economy is based on tourism. Tourists come to enjoy our warm oceans and beautiful coral reefs there. But these reefs are at risk. Runoff from development on land kills the coral. Funding that H.R. 1 cuts is helping us to protect the coral that underpins our tourism economy. Take away the funding and you hit our already fragile tourism industry. We all know that the federal government has to cut spending. There is no disagreement there. We need to weed out wasteful programs. We have to get more efficient and effective with our own spending. But the money that goes to Interior Department to help the insular areas is not wasted. It is effective. It is targeted on precisely the problems that the insular areas confront. It will be a mistake, it is a mistake to cut this tiny amount of money that has a large positive effect in the Northern Mariana Islands and all of the U.S. insular areas. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Mexico rise?
Madam Chair, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Our nation's unsustainable budget deficit is staring us in the face. But it is at critical moments like this when we must approach our nation's greatest challenges with responsibility and prudence. Make no mistake that what's at stake here is grand in scope, and we could have grave consequences for our nation's security, our infrastructure, and our economy. Just this morning, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates called the Republican stopgap spending plan, quote, a crisis on our doorstep, unquote, in terms of our national security, and that these short-sighted budget cuts could lead to costlier and more tragic consequences later. The approach we take must focus on responsible cuts, which will have a lasting impact on our deficit, not arbitrary short-term cuts to programs to win a few votes back home. We should be making decisions based on the best available science, not the worst possible politics. For example, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are focused on defunding the Mexican Wolf Recovery Program instead of protecting the critically important jobs at the National Nuclear Security Administration. The NNSA is responsible for the management and security of our nation's nuclear weapons and nuclear nonproliferation, and provides crucial funding for the work being done at our national labs. Our national labs, like Sandia National Labs in central New Mexico, have a tremendous impact on our local communities and our national defense. Last year, Sandia Labs hired a little over 700 people. 203 of these new hires graduated from a New Mexico university. I'm in favor of reducing government spending. In fact, this week I voted to cut $3 billion in unnecessary spending. But installations critical to our national security, which are also successful private sector economic drivers like Sandia National Labs, should not take the hit. Elsewhere in their spending plan, Republicans want to gut the Land and Water Conservation Fund, a proven economic multiplier that has yielded $4 in economic activity around national parks for every dollar of federal investment. They want to slash the Antiquities Act, which since 1906 has provided an economic lifeline to rural communities surrounded by public lands. Madam Speaker, in the West, outdoor recreation and public lands means jobs. They mean hunting and fishing and camping and a Western way of life. Also on the chopping block are vital funding for women's health care and service agencies like AmeriCorps. In regard to infrastructure, the Republicans' continuing resolution cuts key investments aimed at fixing our crumbling roads, energy grids, and clean water programs. Just this month, in my home state of New Mexico, we experienced a major gas outage emergency. On the coldest night of the year, with temperatures as low as -32 degrees, families were left without heat due to distribution infrastructure failures across the Southwest. In an era of infrastructure failures which wreak havoc on communities, cutting key transportation and infrastructure investments would leave America dangerously vulnerable. At the same time, these cuts will result in the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs. The middle class is still on a shaky path to recovery from the worst recession since the Great Depression. Let's not pull the rug out from underneath the hardworking people we came here to represent. It's been 2 months since the Republicans took over the majority, and they still haven't introduced a jobs package. It was bad enough that the Republicans were ignoring jobs, but with this CR, they're now actively trying to cut jobs. I don't know about you, but a so-be-it attitude is simply not going to cut it when it comes to the families I represent back home. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to resist the temptation to politicize the very serious business of reducing our nation's deficit. That is the only way we will ever rebuild the public's trust in government and grow our economy. Madam Chair, I withdraw my amendment.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from California rise?
Madam Speaker, I move to strike the last word.
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm going to speak on the issue of water. I represent an area where we have a Superfund site called the San Gabriel Groundwater Contaminated Site, which continues. This resolution will risk the water supply of over 30 million people and directly affects the ability to continue the 20-year cleanup that's been in effect, with another 15 years to run on the contaminated site, the site of Connecticut, which undermines the agreements the local, the state, the federal, and the potential responsible parties have come together in doing the Bay Delta Conservation Plan. Regard to Klamath settlements, which help secure supply, clean water supply, adequate water supply to farmers and the environment in San Joaquin Valley and the Klamath Basin, impacting the entire state of California. The settlement impacts an agreement developed by not only farmers and the tribes and the conservation groups, the power companies in the states of California and Oregon, negotiated by no less than the Bush administration for voluntary removal of these privately owned dams. This will prevent fair congressional consideration of the Klamath agreements. Madam Chair, the San Gabriel Restoration Fund, the Superfund list that I cited before on H.R. 1 is the last line of defense against migrating groundwater contamination that has affected our basin for over 35 years, which was due to pesticides, fertilizer, and other contaminants. Has treated 24,000 acre-feet of contaminated groundwater, helped fund the construction of 24 treatment facilities, has removed thousands of volatile organic compounds, the VOCs, carcinogens, and it also threatens the health of some 40-50 communities in Southern California area. With another decade or more needed to complete this cleanup, the funding to fight the spread of this contamination must not be eliminated. In the Bay Delta, the further cuts would also abolish key elements of the San Joaquin River Restoration Program and the implementation of two biological opinions on endangered species, protecting wild California Bay Delta fisheries and risking millions of people's water supply delivery. Fish are a species, so is the human race, another species. Madam Speaker, I've got 2 letters that I'd like to submit for the record supporting one of the programs that apparently is not being on, but I still like to submit it for the record.
That request will have to be offered to the full House.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Speaker. Conservation and water recycling create jobs, they save money, and just talk or conservation about these cuts is not warranted. We need that water. Our economy needs the water and the jobs all of these will produce. Our communities need our support in developing local and sustainable water supplies through all the programs we can afford them. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield back.
The lady yields back the balance of her time. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Florida rise?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I rise to strike the last word.
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, I'm committed to cutting the deficit, and I sought a seat on the Budget Committee to do so. But I rise to express deep concerns over the congressional Republicans' irresponsible fiscal scheme that will harm communities and students back home that I represent. We need a multi-year strategy to cut the debt and the deficit, but a strategy that ensures that America retains the superiority in education, innovation, and research. We must cut waste and close the huge tax loopholes written by lobbyists like the one for oil companies. But congressional Republicans do not do this. Instead of tackling the debt and deficit in a smart and strategic way, the Congressional Republican scheme will result in job losses, and it will make economic recovery more difficult for American families and businesses. And here are some stark examples from the community I represent back in Florida, in the Tampa Bay area. First, on education and the Pell Grants. I represent an education community with a large public research university and a private college and many community colleges. When the Republicans propose cutting the Pell Grant and support to students, this harms our ability to maintain our superiority in education when we're competing with countries all across the globe. You know that over 9 million students and families rely on the Pell Grant every year in America, and we've worked very hard through the economic recovery to help those students maintain that same level of Pell Grant. So don't take us backwards. You shouldn't be taking us backwards. Do you know what it's like for a hardworking family to pay tuition right now? Is tuition going down? Is tuition being cut? Books being cut? No. So let's not turn our backs on our students and families at this time. Same thing for Head Start. In Tampa and Hillsborough County, we have an award-winning Head Start initiative, and the evidence that Head Start gives students a boost in life is very well known. Parents have to be involved, and we wish all eligible kids could get that boost. Even now, before the congressional Republican cuts, we have 2,400 families on the waiting list and 1,000 infants and toddlers on the early start list. The Republican cuts, again, take us backwards. I hear from back home that 452 families will be told that there's no room for their child. They will also lay off 123 teachers just in my home county alone, because in the state of Florida, they predict that they'll have to lay off almost 2,000 teachers under your cuts. Schools and students, the Republicans again are off base in cutting my local schools, particularly the Title I schools that serve kids that need a little extra attention. We estimate that Republicans will be eliminating 20 to 30 jobs in my home district that serve students that need that achievement gap boost. You are harming the high poverty middle and high school students also in the county across the bay that recently was able to expand beyond elementary schools. Colleagues, and Madam Chair, rather than close the tax loophole for the oil companies that are making multi-billion dollars in profits, the Republicans instead cut my local police and sheriff's departments, like the help we get under COP initiative, and for our juvenile justice initiative to try to prevent gangs from forming in the counties. These initiatives have received national awards from the Attorney General, and it would be a real shame if we had to turn these back. Also in my home county, we rely on some very robust ports in the Tampa Bay area as our economic engines. You're going to cut that economic engine, the support to dredge the canals and the ports so the ships can come in, and we rely on those for jobs. You also are going to cut the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, after the Gulf of Mexico suffered the economic hit under the BP oil blowout, our coastal communities were hurt badly. The tourism industry, the seafood industry, and our wildlife habitats suffered significant damage. So coming from Florida, when you all say that you're going to turn your backs on our ability to monitor our oceans, that's very harmful, because clean oceans and clean beaches mean a healthy economy. Certainly closing the oil company tax loophole would be a wiser course of action. And we all know how harsh it's been under the Great Recession with foreclosures. It has hit us especially hard. So hard that a local expert told me yesterday that the Republican budget cuts, to the magnitude being considered, would greatly and immediately increase homelessness, place more than 1,000 families at risk, and seniors on the street. Vote no on this unwise CR.
Time's expired. Clerk will read. Clerk will read.
Page 264, line 1, section 1703. The level for Department of the Interior, Bureau of Land Management Land Acquisition, $2,750,000.
At the desk, number 193.
Does the gentleman from Virginia rise? Gentleman reserves a point of order. Clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 193, printed in the congressional record, offered by Mrs. Lummis of Wyoming.
The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In December, I voted for that historic agreement between President Obama and Congress to keep American taxes low and to extend unemployment benefits. And now we're here to debate how to pay for that. And I have an idea about how to help pay for that. My amendment, number 193, would strike the remaining funding for this 6 months in this year, totaling $35 million from the budgets of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the BLM, and the Forest Service for the purpose of buying new federal land. There are many alternatives to buying land with cash that would allow them to continue using Yankee ingenuity. And those include land exchanges. In my own state, we have over 500,000 acres that have been designated for disposal by federal agencies because these lands don't fit into good land management. And yet there are other lands that these same federal agencies would like to acquire. They can do exchanges. They can do sales of this land that's designated for disposal and purchase other lands that work better for the fragmented land ownership patterns that we sometimes experience in the West. This is a much better alternative to using $35 million to pay cash to buy new land that adds to the management base and responsibility. At the same time, it would free up land that would be disposed of for people to buy and begin to earn a living on. So this is a way to create jobs, not to burden the federal government, and to recognize that good stewardship and good conservation can be practiced by good federal and private partnerships. And those are the opportunities that are available if we adopt this amendment. It saves the taxpayers money. It helps pay for those unemployed people on unemployment benefits. And this is a win-win amendment. It's only a moratorium. And when we begin the next fiscal year, we would have an opportunity to, having reviewed projects between the Natural Resources Committee and the Interior Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee, and have a better understanding of the ultimate goal of our land acquisitions programs within these federal agencies. Madam Chairman, I urge adoption of the amendment. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. Does the gentleman from Virginia continue to reserve his point of order?
Madam Chair, I will withdraw the point of order, but I will rise to speak against the amendment.
The reservation is withdrawn. The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Chair,
for 5 minutes.
Let me give this body the top 10 reasons to defeat this amendment. Number one, these are not really taxpayer dollars. Number two, this amendment represents a complete elimination of a bipartisan program that has existed for 45 years. The third reason is that this amendment will eliminate all the land and water conservation funding, even the few dollars remaining under the continuing resolution for management of these programs. The fourth reason is that this amendment would force land management agencies to end all the work on congressionally approved projects that are now underway using previous year appropriations. It'll hurt willing seller landowners by preventing agencies from finishing out commitments that are already in place. Fifth reason, many landowners, ranging from elderly widowers and family trusts to ranchers and forest owners, have pressing financial needs that now depend on completion of these ongoing land and water conservation projects. Sixth reason, by eviscerating the Land and Water Conservation Fund, you're going to cause severe impacts on many others as well, including school children in the state of Wyoming. The amendment will bring to an immediate halt the negotiated agreement between the State of Wyoming and the National Park Service to transfer $107 million of school trust lands to Grand Teton National Park. Without the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the state can't meet its mandate to sell those lands and generate revenue to support its educational system. Seventh reason, the amendment would frustrate land exchanges that are currently in process, many of which have been years in the making and are important for local, private economic development and public land management. Eighth reason, under this amendment, the staff wouldn't be in place to even accept and process donations of important natural, historic, and other properties to the public. Ninth reason, without staff, right-of-way work to provide or maintain access for key public needs would be rendered impossible. The public would be unable to secure critically needed routes for fuels and wildfire management, watershed management, and access for sportsmen and other recreational use. 10th reason, the amendment would exacerbate an already draconian cut to the Land and Water Conservation Fund, a program that is already paid for using a very small percentage of oil drilling receipts. This amendment should be rejected. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
I move to strike the requisite number of words.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the Chair. In every state of the United States, the Land and Water Conservation Fund has been one of the most successful programs for preserving open space and our environment for future generations. It's important to note, as the ranking member has said, that the LWCF is not funded by taxpayer dollars but by fees charged to industry for the extraction of oil and gas from public lands. Congress created the LWCF 45 years ago on the principle that some funds garnered from extraction of resources should be devoted to the preservation of other resources, in fact, protecting permanently important lands and waters and access to recreation for all Americans. The LWCF is the only environmental preservation program in the federal government that is fully offset. And under the LWCF, polluters, not taxpayers, pay to protect the environment. So cutting this program doesn't save taxpayer dollars. It robs taxpayers of the returns, and actually, as in so many things in this continuing resolution, it does away with jobs. It's my belief that the LWCF should be fully funded at the authorized level of $900 million, and the stateside program should receive at least $200 million to match state funds. This is what the President requested in his fiscal year 2012 budget, and I think that's a fair proposal. The draconian continuing resolution in front of us not only would zero out the stateside portion of the LWCF, it would cut the LWCF overall program to the lowest level in its history, ending much-needed balance between resource extraction and resource conservation. We should reject soundly this amendment. The budget before us and this continuing resolution would really turn back the clock on efforts to preserve open spaces. The stateside portion of LWCF, which I helped revive in one of my first acts when I came to this Congress, through its matching grants has saved over 73,000 acres in my state of New Jersey. And in our 12th district, which I have the privilege to represent, we've received tens of millions of dollars in stateside LWCF funding. Every family that visits Veterans Park in Mercer County, or the Sickles Recreation Area in the borough of Shrewsbury, or Colonial Lake Playground in Lawrence Township, to name a few of the hundreds of LWCF projects, has benefited directly from this successful program. Preserving open space is more than an environmental issue. It really is a quality of life issue. It's not about just preserving beautiful vistas. It's about preserving nature's way of cleansing herself. It is about providing recreation and parks. It is particularly important for states east of the Mississippi, but it is no less important for states, all 50 states. Every state has positive stories to tell about LWCF. Voters consistently have supported funding open space preservation. Recent polling found that 86% of Americans are supportive of reinvesting funds from offshore drilling fees to land and water protection. President Johnson said, "If future generations are to remember us more with gratitude than sorrow, we must achieve more than just the miracles of technology. We must also leave them a glimpse of the world as it was created, not just as it looks when we get through with it." The Land and Water Conservation Fund is one of the few government programs that really benefits all Americans, does not use taxpayer dollars, receives the overwhelming support of the nation. I ask my colleagues to defeat this amendment, and I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition? Gentleman from Idaho, for what purpose do you rise?
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5
minutes.
minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand and sympathize with the amendment that the gentlelady from Wyoming is proposing. We in the West sometimes have a little bit different point of view when, regardless of where the funding comes from, whether it comes from money that comes from oil sales or other things, when you're buying additional land in the state that's 64% federal land currently, that causes some concern to Westerners. So I understand why sometimes people from New Jersey and Massachusetts and other places that don't have a lot of public lands sometimes don't understand the same concern that we share out there. So I sympathize with what the gentlelady is saying in this amendment, but I would point out this started out in 2010. There was $450 million in the Land and Water Conservation Fund appropriated for this year, and we have reduced that in this bill to $58 million. It already terminates funding for any new federal land acquisition projects, an action we had to take in order to meet the subcommittee's allocation halfway through this fiscal year. All that remains is enough funding for managing projects funded in prior years and for emergencies and in-holdings for small acquisitions that make sense and save taxpayers money in the long run. So we've reduced this fund for any new land acquisition. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the next bill, but this one would allow for those in-holdings to be purchased, those things that are ongoing and currently under negotiation. So I think it's the appropriate thing to do. Terminating these programs would pull the rug out from under private landowners that have already made commitments, that we've already made commitments to, many of whom have fallen under hard times in this economy, who need to sell their lands and who would want to conserve those lands for the benefit of all Americans. So as much as I sympathize with what the gentlelady is trying to do, I think reducing all of the funds out of that account would be inappropriate and would oppose and urge my members to oppose this amendment. And yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For purpose of the gentleman from Massachusetts rise.
I rise to strike the requisite number of words.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the gentleman very much. The Land and Water Conservation Fund is a nearly 50-year-old promise to the American people that if we are going to allow giant oil companies like BP to deplete our ocean energy resources, we will take a small sliver of their massive profits and deposit it into a conservation fund. Since its creation in 1965, the Land and Water Conservation Fund has allowed federal acquisition of critical acres inside the national parks, vital wildlife habitat, conservation easements, and water rights, as well as construction of local recreational facilities through grants to states. The fund has served as one of the most important tools in building and protecting our national resource heritage. The underlying bill devastates this revered program by slashing the amount to be paid out of the fund for conservation by almost 90% compared to current levels. Almost 90% of a cut from current levels. The funding level contained in the underlying bill is the lowest proposed amount since the program was created in 1965. This is not a return to fiscal year '08. This is not a return to fiscal year '09. This is a return to fiscal year LBJ. That's their goal, to go back right to the very beginning, and if they could, to the year before, when it did not exist at all. That's the real goal of what this debate is trying to accomplish from the Republican side. And now this amendment proposes a further reduction in the Land and Water Conservation Fund. To be clear, this amendment does not save this money. Rather, it borrows this money from a trust fund and uses it to offset spending that has already occurred. This is diverting oil money from its intended conservation purpose in violation of a promise made to the American people. The Outdoor Industry Association points out that outdoor recreation contributes $730 billion annually to the United States economy and supports more than 6 million jobs. The Land and Water Conservation Fund is good for the environment. It's good for the economy. And it's a 50-year-old promise to every American. The cuts contained in the underlying bill would cripple the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Further cuts could kill it. This amendment should be defeated, and it should be seen in the context of this massive attempt by the new Republican majority to take the EPA and to turn it into every polluter's ally, to take the clean air and the clean water laws and begin to undermine them systematically, to take each and every one of these environmental areas that we've made tremendous progress in over the last 30, 40, and 50 years and begin to roll back those gains as though America was not the beneficiary. There's a good reason why America is the #1 box office smash in the world, and that's because they look at us and they appreciate the commitment that we have made to the public health, to the public lands, to clean water, to clean air. And if we begin to undermine that image, then we will be hurting our country, we will be hurting our tourism, we'll be hurting our ability to be able to pass on this planet in better condition than the way we found it. I urge that we, and under no circumstances, support a provision which would accomplish all those goals, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Does anyone else seek recognition? If not, the question is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Wyoming. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Wyoming will be postponed. Gentleman from Michigan. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan rise? The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman, I thank you for the recognition. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
I rise more in sorrow than anger about the legislation now before us. All members will agree we have to confront our budget deficit. But we have to do so, I think, in a sensible fashion. I grieve that that does not happen here, and that the cuts of the magnitude that we are making today, and the places where they're being made, is destructive beyond belief. We risk a continuation or indeed reigniting the recession which has plagued us, and we risk seeing to it that the great needs of our country are not met. We are looking at strong possibility of loss of jobs. The Economic Policy Institute estimates that 800,000 jobs will be lost. Jobs that are not only important, but indeed are a major national priority that are being put on the chopping block. Let us look at some of the things about which our Republican friends are dismissive. The education of our children. The continuing resolution will eliminate or reduce aid for almost 1.5 million low and middle income students paying for college. The safety of our food. The cuts here will hamstring Food and Drug Administration's ability to implement critical food safety legislation, leaving us again vulnerable to food-related illness and death. Americans' health. The continuing resolution cuts billions from the Department of Health and Human Services, over $1 billion from the National Institute of Health, and over $1 billion from community health centers. The welfare of our homeless veterans. Even housing vouchers for homeless defenders of our country are eliminated. This is disgraceful, and indeed it is a dishonor to those who have served their country. Job training. The continuing resolution cuts billions from the job training for displaced workers, turning our backs on those hit hardest by the recession. U.S. exports, which make jobs. Even though both Democrats and Republicans have called for a reduction in the trade deficit, the continuing resolution severely cuts into our primary promotion of exports. The securities of our streets. Millions will be cut from the funding for state and local policing activities to fight drugs, gangs, and terrorism. Moreover, the continuing resolution eliminates federal grants to help police departments around the country to rehire or to hire police officers. Critical conservation programs, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and the North American Wetlands Conservation Act, all of which are solid bipartisan programs, would be either completely or effectively gutted. In addition, the legislation prevents the Environmental Protection Agency from taking important steps to protect the waters of our nation. Mr. Chairman, with employment hovering around 9% nationally and much higher in my own state, and many Americans still struggling through this recession, we cannot pull the rug out from under them. Politics aside, cuts of this magnitude would be unhealthy, untimely, and provide uncertainty for our nation as we try to get back on our feet. Instead of draconian cuts, we should be looking to see to it that we have wise and prudent cuts, but at the same time we have an investment in the future of our country and in our people. I do not see that in this proposal before us at this time. As the President has said, we can, and indeed we must, out-educate, out-innovate, and out-build our competitors. That is the only way that the United States can achieve the kind of hoped-for recovery and economic activity that will benefit our next generations. Contrary to H.R. 1, we need to balance investments that will help our economy to recover, while also committing to decreasing the federal deficit. It is clear that neither of the goals will be achieved overnight, and they certainly will not be achieved in this legislation. I stand ready to work with my colleagues and with the President to find responsible and effective ways to trim the budget, but I refuse to permit my Republican colleagues to gut vital government programs and bring our economic recovery to a standstill. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance. For what purpose the gentleman from New York rise?
Mr. Chair, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer this motion to speak out against the blatant attack on clean water contained in Section 1747 of this Republican continuing resolution, a provision that does not save the taxpayer one single dollar. The Clean Water Act became law, as we know, in 1972, with the stated purpose of cleaning up America's waterways and wetlands. Since then, this landmark legislation has served as a framework for protecting our drinking water from deadly toxins and preserving the ecological integrity of our waterways. In my home state of New York, from the mighty waters of rivers like the Hudson to the many lakes of the Adirondacks, this legislation has been absolutely critical, where 95% of our population relies on public drinking water in some form. Unfortunately, in the last 10 years, millions of acres of wetlands and thousands of miles of streams have lost Clean Water Act protection. Healthy streams and wetlands naturally filter and replenish our drinking water supplies. They absorb floodwaters and protect coastlines and support local hunting, fishing, boating, and recreation industries. 1/3 of Americans gets their drinking water from the types of streams that are vulnerable to pollution under recent rollbacks. And this bill includes a provision that would ban EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers from working within their legal authority to mitigate that threat. This is an appropriations bill. According to my colleagues across the aisle, it is a bill with the sole purpose of reducing the deficit, a noble goal. However, the Clean Water Rider in Section 1747 of this bill does not save one dime of taxpayer money. It is not about funding. It is about restricting the legal authority of the EPA and the work of the Army Corps of Engineers in an underhanded, politics-as-usual attack on our drinking water, our environment, and the thousands of recreational fishing, hunting, and boating jobs that these water resources support. We may have banned formal earmarks this year, but this rider amounts to a handout to big polluters at the expense of basic public health protections. Mr. Chair, I again thank you and then yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona, the gentlelady from who actually wishes to claim time? Gentleman from Arizona, for
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. The legislation before us, or the continuing resolution, is, I believe, a full-throttle extremist assault on the environment, the public health of the American people, and the jobs and economic well-being of our nation as a whole. In these difficult times that we are in, it is the economy and jobs that should be the top priority for this Congress and for the Republican majority. This CR does irreparable harm to the environment, including air, water, our lands, our public lands, and wildlife. The virtual elimination of public health protection by the reckless dismantling of the jurisdiction of the EPA and the funding of the EPA will bring health crises to the American people and endanger families and children. And today the President is announcing his Great Outdoors Initiative, and at a time when he is asking for private, state, local, and federal cooperation in the protection of public places, in the enhancement of recreation and outdoor activities for the American people, this CR talks about the elimination of state and tribal wildlife grants, which are essential in that coordination. It talks about reducing by 90% the Land Water Conservation Fund, which is essential to promoting that cooperation and promoting the joint planning and joint jurisdiction of many of our special places in this country. And the upcoming punitive elimination attempt to eliminate the National Landscape Conservation System will leave 800 units, public units, abandoned, without coordination, and without the ability to plan for the future and to be coordinated in such a fashion that they save money and serve the American people the best. This CR places our special public places and lands on the endangered list, with irrational cuts and ending the shared responsibility to protect and conserve. Big oil and gas and mining do not own these public places and lands. The American people do, and to turn to extraction as the only goal for these public lands denies history, ignores science, and welcomes the exploitation of a shared resource by the American people. And if deficit reduction is the item on the agenda, and we all agree that we must confront that and be prudent, be pragmatic, and be realistic in cutting programs, then we also should put everything on the table. Because if it is indeed an issue of deficit reduction, then let's talk about some items that the majority did not put in their CR. Some of the subsidies, some of the giveaways to industry that are part of the public land agenda and part of what happens within the Interior Department. expensing reforestation expenditures, $600 million under public land, excessive percentage over cost depletion for non-fuel minerals, $500 million, expensing exploration for non-fuel minerals, $400 million, intangible drilling costs, $8.9 billion, oil and gas royalty relief, $6.9 billion, domestic manufacturing and tax deduction for oil and gas companies, $6.2 billion. And if you keep going down that list, with coal subsidies, nuclear industry subsidies, oil and gas subsidies, public land subsidies, you end up with a figure of $100 to $200 billion. I'm not saying that all those cuts should be eliminated. I don't think we should take an axe to those areas. Some are productive and needed. But if we are going to scrutinize this budget, let's do it in a fair way that shares and balances what we're going through while we protect important things in our public lands and in our public health. I urge all my colleagues to balance public health of families and children, the public lands we love, the shared responsibility we have to clean air, water, public health, and our national resources, balance that with the narrow agenda that is confronting us today, an agenda that punishes taxpayers and the American people at the expense and for the profit of private oil and gas interests in this country. As we confront this issue, I would suggest to my colleagues that the legacy of our public lands and our environment, the legacy of our clean air and water, the public health of our people should be the priority. And if cuts need to be made, then all cuts should be placed on the table. All cuts should be looked at, including subsidies and including giveaways and deductions that are not part of the norm with our public dollars. That would be good for the taxpayer, it would be good for the environment, and it would be good in reducing the deficit. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose the gentlelady from Massachusetts rise? Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the underlying bill. I was an early and strong supporter of the President's bipartisan commission on the debt. And while I do not agree with all of the Commission's recommendations, I recognize that their report to the President offered an important starting point for debate on an issue that affects the lives of every American as well as future generations. In the report, the Commission warns against disrupting our fragile economic recovery. Quote, "We need a comprehensive plan now to reduce the debt over the long term, but budget cuts should start gradually so they don't interfere with the ongoing economic recovery. Growth is essential to restoring fiscal strength and balance. We should cut red tape and unproductive government spending that hinders job creation and growth. But at the same time, we must invest in education, infrastructure, and high-value research and development to help our economy grow, keep us globally competitive, and make it easier for businesses to create jobs." End quote. The bill before us fails to heed this sound advice, making short-sighted decisions that will sabotage our short-term recovery and undermine our long-term competitiveness. The reckless decisions made in this bill will lead to lost jobs in my district throughout the nation. Some of these job losses are obvious. Deep cuts to cops and safer funding will ensure that we will lose thousands of police officers and firefighters protecting our communities nationwide. But other losses may be less obvious but just as painful. For instance, this legislation imposes deep cuts on the Food and Drug Administration. Every single drug, vaccine, biologic, and medical device must be approved by the FDA before it can ever be offered to patients. This means that not only do patients rely on the FDA, but also American pharmaceutical and medical device companies that need an efficient and effective FDA to ensure that they can continue to innovate, grow, and create jobs. We are lucky to have a medical device industry in this country that is on the cutting edge of technological advances in medicine. What we should be doing is modernizing the FDA to make it more efficient, transparent, predictable, and rigorous. And to do that, we need to ensure that the FDA has all the necessary resources to conduct proper and speedy review of life-saving devices that not only benefit patients, but our innovative businesses, so that many of them can get to work putting people to work. For these private sector firms, cutting FDA resources means slowing down their approval process, driving some of them overseas, and losing many jobs here in our country as well. Likewise, cuts to local funding included in this bill will harm communities I represent, particularly the deep cuts to the Community Development Block Grant Program. When I have asked leaders in the cities I represent how we can best help their recovery efforts, the answer has been unhesitating and unequivocal: CDBG funding. Last week, the city manager in my hometown of Lowell wrote, saying, quote, "This is probably the most valuable tool that the federal government offers cities to address economic development, infrastructure, and community needs." What is most discouraging about the attack on CDBG funding is that it does just what my colleagues say they support. It provides local flexibility, allowing stakeholders to decide what makes sense for their communities, while ensuring an extremely efficient use of funds. For example, last year in the city of Lowell, every $1 in CDBG funding generated more than $16 in additional funding. Over the years, Lowell has successfully used CDBG funds to develop a historic building into a much-needed senior center, turning a blight into a landmark and prompting the entry of private businesses nearby. It has used funds to spur the development of a mixed-use development that is bringing in millions of dollars in private development and restoring architectural treasures key to the city's identity. And it has provided seed money to nonprofits like the United Teen Equality Center, recognized nationally for the revolutionary work they're doing every day to curb gang violence in the city of Lowell. All of these actions have improved the quality of life and created jobs for Lowell residents, and none might have been made possible without this modest federal investment. So I do not support the underlying bill, and I encourage its rejection. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Minnesota seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I rise to strike the last word.
Gentlelady from Minnesota is recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise today to let the American people and all Minnesotans know that this continuing resolution is an unprecedented assault on our public health and environment. We know that the federal budget is in crisis. We know we must make tough choices. But those choices must be prudent, wise, and invest in our future. It should not put the basic health of Americans at risk. The Republicans' plan before us proposes to cut $3 billion from the EPA's budget, the largest percentage cut to this critical agency in 30 years. The bill also proposes radical policy language to keep the EPA from carrying out its historic mission, a mission to protect the health of the American people by limiting the EPA's ability to enforce the Clean Air and Clean Water Act. The EPA needs to be allowed to do its job, and it needs the resources to do this job. This bill would cause the EPA to lay off 80% of its employees who are responsible for protecting public health. State clean water programs are gutted by $2 billion in the Republican budget. Our local communities are struggling with their own budgets, and these vital funds allow for communities to hire engineers, construction workers, to upgrade water plants and drinking water projects. The EPA's investment in clean water that allows It is the EPA's investment in clean water that allows parents to know that if their child walks up to a drinking fountain anywhere in America, they can have the peace of mind that that water is safe for their child to drink. These irresponsible cuts jeopardize that peace of mind. The EPA does important work, and the work that the EPA does saves lives. And I strongly oppose these reckless Republican cuts and radical deregulation proposals that endanger our communities. Congress needs to make difficult choices. Mr. Chair, I believe that these are foolhardy choices to shortchange clean air, clean water, and the health of our families. Yesterday, I received over 1,000 Valentines from Minnesotans, and those Valentines were dedicated to the EPA. My constituents understand the important work that the EPA has done to protect our water, our land, and their health over the past 40 years, and it's work that they feel must continue. This continuing resolution would turn back all the tremendous progress we have made in cleaning up our environment, and I firmly reject it and urge my colleagues to do as well. Mr. Chair, with that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Oregon, for what purposes you seek recognition?
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate Speaker Boehner and my Republican colleagues providing for an open discussion on this legislation. And I appreciate the Speaker's request that we be respectful of the process. I think that is important. But I think it is important to come to the floor at this point to make a couple of very important observations that are critical to the people I represent. We're ready to move forward to actually deal with cutting the budget. We've already seen today a significant amendment adopted dealing with defense. There are opportunities for us to accelerate health care savings in Medicare. And from the beginning of my coming to this body, I've been working on a bipartisan basis to deal with reductions in unnecessary and wasteful agricultural subsidies. But there are several items that we are dealing with in the continuing resolution that have nothing to do with saving money. Indeed, they are actually going to cost money and economic impact in my community and around the country. I note, for instance, the policy rider that would prevent the EPA and the Corps of Engineers from clarifying provisions of the Clean Water Act. As a result, millions of acres of wetlands and thousands of miles of stream will lose Clean Water Act protection. Because these affect so much of the headwater stream supply to deal with public surface drinking water in my state, it could end up threatening drinking water quality for almost 2 million people. The cut to the state revolving funds are extraordinarily imprudent. This money leverages a great deal of activity and helps us deal with a massive infrastructure deficit with water quality. EPA estimates, the Corps of the Society of Civil Engineers backs this up. We are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars we need to be investing in the next 20 years. Cutting the revolving fund is a dramatic step backward. In the area of air quality, there is a rider that attempts to prevent EPA from regulating greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I will tell you on its merits dealing with the greenhouse gases that this will look foolish for the people who are proposing it to their children and grandchildren. They will wonder, what were you thinking? But put aside for a moment the problem of greenhouse gas emissions and carbon pollution. The language will have far-reaching and, I hope, unintended consequences. It would hinder EPA's ability to relax requirements on biomass plants that matter, for example, to my friend from Idaho and others in the Northwest. Very important to us. It will prevent, the way it was drafted, it will prevent the issuance of permits. Preventing the issuance of permits, the language would impose a de facto construction ban on new sources in many states, including Oregon. Block not only new or expanded power plants, but refineries and large manufacturing plants. With unemployment rates high in my state and around the country, a construction moratorium hardly seems to make sense. The budget decimates the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This was a program that represented a commitment to offset some of the destructive effects of oil and gas production by preserving many of America's high-quality recreational opportunities and vital wildlife habitat. This is violating a commitment that this body has made to finally allow these funds to flow. Unfortunately, future investments are going to be at risk if this CR passes with the existing funding level, and missing opportunities to complete landscapes and protect watersheds, actually preventing agencies from meeting commitments already in place. My final concern at this point deals with the assault on energy investments. The United States invests approximately 0.5% of the trillion-dollar energy sector. If anything, we should be ramping this up. We are losing our competitive edge around the world. We're losing economic opportunities and opportunities to preserve the environment. Mr. Chairman, I have other concerns. There are other people that have things to say. I will yield back at this point, but hope that we can reject these provisions in the CR that actually make no difference in terms of reducing the budget and violate commitments that we have made.
Gentleman yields back.